What is up, you guys? Slammer here, coming back with another Littlewargame video, and today we're going to do a replay of a Littlewargame match between Hobo in the top left as the red player, and Chomsky in the bottom right as the blue. So this should be a good matchup. I kind of want to apologize, I haven't, you guys have, some of you guys have been sending in some great replays that I haven't had a chance to get to or cast or look at yet. So I kind of want to take a little bit of time right now and fix that and watch one of these replays. And I do want to thank you guys for sending those replays in. Even though it's been quite a while since I've uploaded or whatever, I still keep an eye on that folder, and I still hope to cast a lot of those games that have been sent in. Anyway, let's get, without that out of the way, let's get into this replay. Hobo's going for a den first expand, or just a one den rather. See if he expands, probably he will. Chomsky's going for some standard Rax play probably, maybe Beast play, we'll see. He's going with the castle first, however. So Chomsky obviously going with the more economic opening, Hobo going with the more Beast aggressive opening. We'll kind of see what kind of tech Chomsky adds on as soon as he has the goal. Oh, he's going for den. So it's going to be a Beast versus Beast matchup, which could get pretty interesting. It's been a little while since we've had a Beast versus Beast game on my channel, it feels like. So yeah, let's get into it. Chomsky is just getting his gold advantage here. Hobo's getting a little bit of harassment done. This is very essential for the one den. You need to, at the very least, delay mining time, kind of mess up that gold mined and income tab a little bit, because you can see that Chomsky's going to have a very nice total gold mined and current income advantage because of the fact that Hobo's castle is so much later. Although, on the flip side, Hobo is going to have a nice little aggressive option. Maybe if he gets one worker or just delays the mining, that's the strength of this one den opening. And one den is also quite good against Rax plays, because Rax gets their units out a little bit later than a den fast expand. So very nice micro by Hobo, trapping that wolf on the edge of the map there. So Hobo's really putting some nice pressure on because of how late Chomsky's wolves ended up being there. He's just dodging in and out, trying to get a wolf here. Very solid micro from the red player here, Hobo. Nice play to get as much equity out of the wolves that he has as possible. He should bring this fifth wolf into the combat as soon as possible. Yep, there he goes. So he's 6 wolves to 3 wolves, so he has a nice wolf advantage right now. And he's just macroing it up, playing a very solid beast game so far. Chomsky has opted to pull all the workers to take this fight, which is, I don't really agree with that decision, because he's losing so much gold because of this maneuver. And Hobo can just walk away. He doesn't have to fight versus the workers, so pulling the workers is a bit desperate, really. And a very nice angle for Hobo there. I wouldn't commit there. Yeah, good pullback. Very nice pullback from Hobo. And we can kind of see that Chomsky is yeah, a little bit on the ropes. He got a bad supply block. Actually, both players got a bad supply block at 30. Just a little too much focus on that intense micro battle that was going on. Also interesting to know that Chomsky has added on the snake pit, which is a really important building in the new Beast vs Beast, because snakes actually murder wolves. It's not really even fair. It's pretty brutal. So snakes become a very important piece of the puzzle later on. And again, really nice pressure from Hobo, keeping Chomsky really in a tough position with this wolf micro. And just solid pressure. He's also getting that third base up much faster, which is going to give him a nice economic lead as we get into the later stages. Still supply blocked at 40, so really needs to add some more houses on. Otherwise, he's going to start losing this wolf battle as Chomsky starts clearing up towards that 50 supply cap he has. Also, a couple snakes out, which is going to give Hobo some problems. He's going to take this trade, get us some decent kills on the wolves, although if he's not careful, he's going to lose a lot of these wolves here that are very low red health to the snake and the tower that he has in the background here. Yeah. Still a very nice trade for Hobo, I think. As long as he doesn't lose very many more of these wolves, he needs to pull out right now. Like if he can keep those 3 wolves alive, it would be nice. He's not going to, but still a very good trade. You can see that in the gold lost as well. Very solid trade for Hobo there. But for Chomsky's side of things, he does manage to secure that 3rd base, and it looks like Hobo has neglected upgrades or tech of any kind. He's sticking on pure wolf. He just now adding his snake building. So Chomsky does have a slight tech advantage. He's quite far behind in gold, but actually he's not terrible. It's not terrible actually because of his opening. He's actually able to stabilize pretty nicely here, and he's at +1 damage on his wolves and snakes. So overall, a pretty surprisingly even game, because I think Hobo was in a really good position for a while there. I think he just got supply blocked, messed up his macro just slightly, so that allowed Chomsky to kind of catch back up. But regardless, it's now a fairly even game. If we look at the units here, pretty close. Or not there. Yeah, there we go. Very close in units. In fact, Chomsky has 10. Hobo has 11, or 10. Hobo has 9. Also, Hobo is slightly ahead in workers, which is because he got that 3rd base a bit faster. So, but Chomsky is producing 3 workers at a time. Now a big fight coming in here. I think Chomsky's going to win this fairly easily because he has the snake advantage, and snakes are just super solid against wolves. I think that was a bit over-aggressive by Hobo. I think you need to wait until you have a nice snake count before you trade, because if you don't have snakes in new Beast versus Beast, you pretty much just lose the fight. Wolves by them, unless you have a really overwhelming number and you can get a full surround or something, just the snakes in the back cause pushing out so much DPS versus the enemy's wolves. It's pretty intense. So we have a solid fight here. Chomsky's trying his best to keep his wolves alive and just dodging in and out with his snakes damage because he has a slight snake lead. But I think the reinforcements from Hobo are going to be enough to clear out this this enemy push out, and he's going to snipe quite a few of the wolves and snakes of Chomsky here. Chomsky's going to try to like pull back and just kite with his snakes, kill as many wolves as possible, and both players are going to have to back out and reposition here. Hobo is up to his ideal 30 worker count, so it's really just down to macro and patrol. The really interesting thing is definitely that Hobo has neglected upgrades for very late. Now remember, upgrades did get nerfed slightly in the current patch that they're playing on. So they're about half the price, but they're also about half the effectiveness. Maybe not quite half the price, but they are half the effectiveness of the previous original base game. So delaying your upgrades, I think, is actually more viable than it would have been in previous patches. Definitely, I think Hobo's game plan was pretty solid to secure map control, get your faster 3rd base, and neglect upgrades. Chomsky's trying to be cute, taking high ground advantage here, but unfortunately Hobo kind of sniffs that out and attacks one flank with his wolves and snakes. And now these snakes are in a bit of trouble because they have no wolf buffer, so they're actually getting chewed apart here. But now finally Chomsky's able to get that sweet full surround he's been looking for. He's actually chewing through Hobo's snake lines really very brutally here. And Hobo's forced to pull back. He's got a nice reinforcement cloud behind, so he shouldn't actually lose too much here, but he's going to take a slightly unfavorable trade there. And I think you're really seeing the upgrade advantage come into 4 here, because he has, I think, +1 speed, +1 attack on his snakes there. So yeah, those upgrades definitely swung the fight in favor of our blue beast player here. And Hobo is confused by that fight. He's like, how did I lose? I don't know. Very introspective there. Both players at fairly equal supplies here. Very equal unit counts, to be honest. Looks like Chomsky has a slight lead in snakes, but a lot of those snakes are still trundling across the map. Yeah, just a really even beast versus beast game here. I feel like Hobo maybe has a few too many wolves. I prefer to play really snake heavy in my beast versus beast, but that's just more like my personal preference. I'm not 100% sure what the complete ideal composition is. Regardless, he's going to be fairly equal in numbers to what Chomsky has. Now, I'm not sure if this fight's going to go very well for the red player because a lot of his snakes were not firing for a second. Chomsky's trying to get a better concave with his snakes. Unfortunately, looks like Hobo's snake core there is putting too much damage down, and Chomsky is forced to back out. Still another fairly even trade there for both teams. I think this high ground advantage really allows red to build a concave easily with his snakes, whereas Chomsky has to push up this ramp into the line of fire. Still a solidly even trade. The supplies are super close. If we look at the upgrades, we have plus 2 attack, plus 1 armor, and plus 1 speed for Chomsky, plus 2 attack, plus 1 armor for our red player. But he has triple E-base going, whereas Chomsky only has double E-base going. If we take a really quick look at the den count, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. 9 dens here for Chomsky, whereas Hobo is looking like he's operating off of 5 dens. One of them is transitioning to werewolves. So this is an interesting choice by Hobo. He's going for werewolves here. I do feel like he definitely needs to add a couple more dens, otherwise he's going to be out produced by Chomsky, especially in these later stages of the game. Chomsky's going for a sick run by here, trying to catch Hobo's forces out of position, and he's succeeded in doing that. It looks like he's going to snipe this third base for minimal losses. In fact, this army can actually take this fight if he so chooses. He's deciding to just back away, and that plus speed upgrade is really coming to into good use for Chomsky here, because he's able to run away his snakes even from wolves, even though wolves are slightly faster than snakes, and that's all because he has that speed advantage. So it allows him to really outposition Hobo. Now Hobo is in a bit of trouble because he has not secured that 4th base, and his main is about to run out. So he's going to definitely be behind in in that gold situation very soon if he doesn't secure this 4th base. Like, losing this 4th base was actually a super important blow for Chomsky to land there, and it's going to make it extremely difficult for Hobo going forward. This is a very solid fight though, because Hobo is able to catch smaller packs of units with his overwhelming force. As long as he doesn't lose these units, he can't lose this little squad of snakes. Oh, this is very bad for Hobo now, because Chomsky's taking a very efficient trade against a small pack of snakes with his greater snake counts. I think we're starting to see the problem with having this many wolves in Hobo's composition, because the amount of DPS these snakes are putting out, especially with plus attack upgrades, they're just chewing through the snake lines far too quickly, and Hobo's army can't really come to grips with the snake counts that Chomsky is able to bring to bear here. He's also using the high ground, low ground to great effect here, because a lot of Hobo's units are not able to fight because they're derping around at the bottom of the ramp. So this nice snake concave that Chomsky has produced for himself here is really doing wonders, and now he can immediately counterattack and kill this 4th base, which is again very, very bad for Hobo. Fortunately for Hobo, Chomsky decides not to commit to this 4th base, which is honestly a bit of a mistake. I think he can form a concave right here. Just a couple seconds ago, and he could have won this fight easily. Now actually Hobo is able to get some snakes to help him out. But again, superior concave and numbers for Hobo, and Hobo is just bleeding out snakes here. This is just very, very bad for him right now. He's going to have to do something quickly here. Perhaps this werewolf can swing the tide, because he's about to lose a lot of workers and a lot of economy here if he's not careful. Still decent trades coming down, and this werewolf now is going to be really the decision maker in this fight. Werewolves do not have smash anymore, for those of you who don't know, but they now do have an AoE damage attack. Fortunately, it looks like the werewolf is going to finally go down, but I think the amount of damage it soaked was enough for Hobo's own snakes to kind of stem the tide for a second. He needs to pull his snakes back and try to survive until his next wave of reinforcements pops. Again, working off that 4 den production is really hurting him, because you can see how many units Chomsky is pumping out of these dens. He's got as much money as he can possibly need, and he's just pumping highly upgraded snakes right at Hobo's vulnerable 3rd base. Really a very nice clinic of macro from Chomsky here. He is lacking a couple upgrades. I would like to see this testing lab to start producing some upgrades. But yeah, overall, just better macro and better positioning from Chomsky here. I think these few wolves mixed in is helping a little bit for a second, but now that those wolves are dead, Hobo's snakes are just taking straight up too much damage from Chomsky's forces. I just kind of realized that Hobo has a nice upgrade advantage in the straight-up damage and attacks, and that's why these fights are actually going surprisingly well for him, despite the fact that he's so far behind in supply. Because he actually has +5 attack and +3 range on his snakes, which is a very interesting choice. He's going to have +4 range, whereas Chomsky has +1 armor and +2 attack, but again, I really do feel like speed at this point, even though he has 0.9 speed, which I believe is 3 speed upgrades. Let's just really quickly check on the upgrades here. Yeah, he has 3 speed upgrades, 1 armor, 2 attack. I'm not sure what this upgrade is, to be honest. That's odd. That looks like a Rax upgrade, but they don't have any Rax units. But they have 2 attack, 1 beast armor, and 3 speed, and no range. So I do feel like Hobo has a far superior range. And he is able to hold this 4th base, so this is actually starting to look like Hobo might be able to pull this game out. His snakes, again, are in not a good concave, they're just in a clump here. He needs to split these snakes so that they're in a better concave. But because he has the +5 range, it doesn't matter quite as much because they can fire from the back. If you don't have range, you must split your snakes into a concave like Chomsky is doing here. Fortunately, a lot of DPS on these wolves is wasted on the castle, and these +3 range snakes are brutal. They're just sniping away at incredible range here, which is really causing Chomsky to have some major issues in this fighting here. And it looks like this fight's going to go fantastic for Hobo. He's got the upgrade advantage, he's got the range, and his snakes are just chewing down Chomsky's forces here. And if Chomsky loses this position, it's going to be very tough for him to continue fighting because he's just been trading poorly this entire game for the last couple minutes because of his lack of upgrades. You can see he's got 1 more attack upgrade going, but I'm really not sure why he has this many speed upgrades, to be honest, because he's already gotten a very nice speed advantage off of Hobo, but in the straight-up trading, his snakes are just so much inferior to Hobo's. The only reason you'd have the speed is to be able to counterattack, like you need some snakes maybe over here, some snakes over here to attack the 3rd, but having this much speed on just straight-up fighting, when you're taking just straight-up fights with your snakes, just doesn't really help your snakes win fights. I think armor is fine. If some of those upgrades were in armor, like, I don't think you have to have range, because I think if you control correctly and get concaves, range doesn't actually matter that much. But not having attack and armor to match the +5 attack of Hobo is a pretty big deal, to be honest. The one thing that really is going for Chomsky right now is the fact that Hobo really has very little map control, and he's having a lot of trouble even holding this 4th base. So he's really only on 2 gold mines. He's just now getting his 5th, whereas Chomsky has a 5th and did have a 6th. He did lose it. But Chomsky has just been operating on far better gold counts here for a long time. But the only catch to that is Hobo has been trading so well lately in these engagements that actually the gold counts don't matter so much, because even though he has had less gold mined, he's being so much more cost efficient with his snake control that Chomsky is actually falling behind a little bit because he's been just bleeding out way too many units. Now, I like this idea to fight by the towers, because these towers are going to be putting in nice DPS in addition to your original fight. And because they're on the high ground, it's very tough for Hobo to just target them down. He does finally realize he can do that right there. It just targets that tower down. Yeah, Chomsky's kind of bemoaning his upgrades now. And again, I don't like this decision go range at this late stage. I think you have to get your +5 attack. Because he's got so much speed, he just doesn't really need the range, because he can just walk on top of these snakes and start engaging, right? You have so much speed, you don't need to try to match Hobo at this late stage in the game with range. It's much better just to get attack upgrades. But now Chomsky is kind of desperately taking engagements here, and honestly, these engagements are going to go extremely poorly for him because he's engaging with far less units against units with better upgrades. So the only way he can win a fight like this is by outpositioning Chomsky, or outpositioning Hobo. So he really needs to be counterattacking. Like hitting the top right is a pretty important thing he needs to do at this point, and just basically forcing Hobo to move his units around. I think Wolves are probably a really good choice at this point because of his speed upgrades. I normally don't think Wolves are great in this situation, but because he has so much speed and Wolves are so fast right now, probably it's a good idea just to build lots of Wolves, because Snake on Snake is going to go very poorly because he does not have range or attack upgrades to bat. Also, armor is going to benefit Wolves a little bit more than Snakes, so just spamming out Wolves is probably a smart choice from Chomsky. I'd like him to saturate that bottom right too. Overall, very solid game from Hobo, but the only problem with Hobo's game plan at the moment is he's really been kind of stuck on his side of the map because of how aggressive Chomsky has been with these speed upgrades and just pressuring this fourth base. So now it's going to be tough for him to move out on the map because of how fast Chomsky's wolves and units are. So we're going to see exactly how Chomsky responds. Like, I think a counterattack might have been a smarter option than trying to deal with this snake force, because this is kind of a death snake force. I would park your snakes right here so that the wolves don't get good surface area, and this force is just going to get chewed away. Nice positioning on those snakes by Hobo. But these wolves are pretty buff. I'm very surprised that these wolves are able to chew through these snakes so well. But Chomsky has a little bit of life left in him. He chews through that entire snake force. And now he finds himself in a decent position, honestly, after that trade, which went really well, surprisingly well for him. I think Hobo needs to mix in a couple wolves, because you do need a little bit of buffer. Honestly, actually, not even wolves. I would prefer werewolves. If I was Chomsky, I would mix in 1 or 2 werewolves behind your snake lines, and I think that's a really strong beast composition. But he's chosen not to do that. Instead, he's just going for these pure snake. And now Chomsky gets a fantastic engagement on the right side. He's going to pick off a ton of snakes here. And probably even more reinforcements if he commits to it. And now this fourth base is again under threat. Chomsky is just completely just stubborn at smashing his face against this fourth base, and he's finally looking like he's going to break through and do a lot of serious economic damage. However, because Hobo does have this top right base, it's not really the end of the world to lose this base. He needs to probably secure it as soon as possible, because it is a lot of gold, but he could also just decide to transition all the way to the right side of the map and let Hobo, or let Chomsky have this left side of the map. And it looks like that's what he's doing. He is going to take this right castle. And this gives Hobo an interesting opportunity to really just pressure straight down to this base, which is pretty much Chomsky's most essential base, although this left base has the most gold left in it. Because we're getting towards that state in the game where a lot of these bases are completely mined out. Chomsky actually still has a little bit of gold in his third, and a little bit of gold in his fourth, and quite a bit in his fifth. And Hobo has just one mining base at this point, with only 2,000 money left in it, 2,000 gold. And now he's going to lose another big snake engagement over here. Man, this game has been so back and forth. I really thought at one point that Hobo had the game won, and that Chomsky was going to lose because of the upgrades. And before that, I thought that Chomsky was going to just walk over him up in the fourth base. But this might be the last engagement of the match. Chomsky has a very nice wolf and snake advantage, and he's just going to walk over Hobo's forces. It looks like Hobo's going to be forced to tap out. What an intense beast versus beast game that was. I had no idea who was going to win up until the final moments there, to be honest. Really felt that Hobo had a great chance to take the advantage because he had the fantastic upgrades over Chomsky, but unfortunately I think Chomsky really hit upon the correct, fortunately for Hobo, Chomsky really hit upon the correct composition, which was a lot of these wolves, and just pure snake with that low health couldn't stand up to these extremely fast wolves who were getting really fast around, and at that point the upgrades didn't matter because with +1 armor the wolves were just chewing down the snakes really fast. So yeah, he really just threw away way too many snakes into the mouths of those wolves. I think if he mixed in a couple werewolves or a couple wolves to buffer, I think then his snakes just chew through these lines just fantastically. Also, I think we really saw the principles of massing units in Beast versus Beast. You really don't want to take fights with small chunks of units against a larger army, because you're going to just immediately lose, and it's going to be losing badly. So you always want to take a fight with your entire army, and if you can't take a fight with your entire army, you have to run away. And that's kind of, I think, the idea behind Chomsky's speed upgrades, because those speed upgrades allow him to just run away from a fight if he takes it. So yeah, really solid game there from both these players. Very exciting Beast versus Beast. I hope you guys enjoyed it as much as I did. Don't forget to like, subscribe, all that good stuff, and I will catch you all later.